the climate challenge of water. As water resources continue to be distressed in arid areas, such as most of the U.S. Mexico border region, adequate management of this resource, essential for life and economic development, will continue to be a priority. Water is a significant factor in attracting, retaining, and expanding industries along the border. Climate challenge will further exacerbate this issue along our border. And I know we had a water video. Gabriel, do you want to play the water video and then we'll call up the panelists? Well, that was just an example of some of the projects that we've worked on, and I leaned over to Renata and told her, well, these are all the projects she's worked on. So, it's a good representation of the work that Renata and her team do here at the bank. I'd like to now call Enrique Martinez, Juan Ignacio Barjan, and Fernando Ferreira to please come up as panelists.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, almost afternoon. Thank you very much for our panelists for being here. I want to tell you that we appreciate very much that you're here for panel number 6, the climate challenge of water. I was asked to be a moderator before management knew I was going to color my hair purple. Some people suggested maybe I should have done blue for water, but since we're talking about climate challenge, the purple you can think of as representing promotion of reuse through purple pipe systems. And so keep that in mind as I'm here. Also to share with you that yesterday I didn't have a chance to write down my recommendation to Ambassador Salazar about cooperative, binational, trilateral cooperation models. But I wanted to suggest that the successful bid for the 2026 World Cup is a great model for that kind of cooperation. And we know that there's going to be a significant role in needing to cooperate and coordinate logistics, movement of players and fans, and with the recent identification of the venues, one of which is in our border region defined by our charter, Monterey. So I don't know if the 2026 forum could maybe be located in Monterey. Jesse, management, please consider that for 2026. From cross-border cooperation in Laredo, Nuevo Laredo, and the sustainable buildings and mobility investments that we've heard about over the last day and a half, to energy and supply chain challenges and opportunities. One of the recurring topics has been water. And we know that the crisis of water scarcity and some of the strategies that we heard also from the governor of Nuevo León, who was shocked basically into addressing the crisis on Father's Day, as he mentioned to us yesterday. So important for us to be considering planning and how we're addressing these issues sooner than later. My name is Renata Manning Bobo. I'm the Director of Technical Services and Grants for NAB Bank. Our team works on the technical and environmental review and analysis for all sectors managed and financed by NAB Bank. And we also manage the grant programs, both funded by our own funds through the Community Assistance Program, as well as funds that come from U.S. EPA that can be used on both sides of the border, looking at water, specifically drinking water and wastewater infrastructure, and many, again, of the projects that you had seen on the last video. I really want to emphasize that NAB Bank has had the opportunity to play a significant role in the development and financing of water sector projects within the border region. You saw in the video this morning that there are 172 drinking water and wastewater projects that represent an investment of $2.6 billion overall, and financing from the bank of just over $1.1 billion of that. So you can see the leveraging effect that NAB Bank brings to the table to developing drinking water and wastewater projects. Those projects have benefited 111 communities, and most of those have been small and disadvantaged communities with environmental justice concerns, which is something that we heard from the panelists from GSA yesterday as a key topic for these focus of investments. As well, we've done financing for water conservation efforts with irrigation districts throughout the U.S. and in Mexico. And we look forward to seeing more of those types of investments occurring both with grants, with loan financing, and certainly with public-private sector partnerships. Our board of directors recently approved almost $11.5 million in grants and $4.5 million in loans, along with a significant investment from Mexico to eliminate untreated discharges from Ciudad Juarez into the Rio Grande River. We heard again yesterday that there's an important focus that needs to come to the Rio Grande River for those water quality issues, that also is a water source for many of the communities in South Texas. We also are working continuously with Tijuana, Mexicali, Nogales, and have a very close relationship with Nuevo Laredo to address the untreated discharges that the mayor mentioned yesterday as well. There could be so much more to say about what NAB Bank's participation has been in this sector, and that's why this panel is so important to include in this forum. As we are experiencing severe drought conditions, not only in our region, but around the world, and that's further exacerbated by the climate change or climate interruption, is what our colleague from Department of State mentioned to us yesterday, that this issue is on the forefront of the hot topics, and we need to know and remember that when we have these erratic and significant rain periods, short periods even, that our memories don't forget that the scarcity of water still exists. The experts we have joining us today to discuss this important topic are innovative and diligent in their efforts to both maintain their constituents' attention to the water crisis, but it just as importantly to promote pioneering solutions to address some of the most important human health and environmental aspects of the water topic: source, quality, delivery, conservation, reclamation, and reuse, all while considering an important balance for agricultural, municipal, and industrial users. Unfortunately, our first panelist, Ms. Alexandra Barrenter, was not able to make the trip due to illness. So we won't hear from her. We won't hear her speak today, but she did send a video to describe the City of San Diego's Pure Water Project, which is a multi-year program that would provide nearly half of San Diego's water supply locally by the end of 2035, reducing the city's demand on imported water. We'll watch the video in just a few minutes that she sent to describe the project. Also, staying in line to introduce our panelists here, staying in line with the water challenge in the west region of the U.S. border, our next speaker is Mr. Enrique Martinez, the actual general manager of Maryland Irrigation District. The ambassador was a little bit off yesterday, which is the largest irrigation district in the country and the third largest public power provider in the state. Mr. Martinez has more than 45 years of experience in the utility sector, assuming ever-increasing levels of responsibility in executive and senior level leadership of administrative, technical, and field operations. In addition to his current position at IID, his tenure includes nearly 25 years with Southern California Edison, 10 years with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, and 7 years with Tennessee Valley Authority. He holds a bachelor's degree in engineering from California State University, Fullerton, and has completed executive training programs at Pepperdine University and the University of Virginia. The district's agricultural, municipal, and industrial water users depend on IID to deliver this indispensable resource without fail and regardless of the circumstances. So when water allocations from the Colorado River to its sole surface water supply are expected to be significantly less than expected, I can only imagine the challenges that Enrique is tasked with addressing. So we'll look forward to hearing about that from you. The next speaker will be, again, from our great economic, one of the great economic centers of Mexico, Monterrey. And with an area certainly challenged as well with the scarcity of water resources to serve its metropolitan population and robust commercial and industrial sectors. Arquitecto Juan Ignacio Barragán Villarreal is an architect and urban planner. He graduated from the Instituto Tecnológico y de Estudios Superiores de Monterrey in 1979, with postgraduate studies in France between 1982 and 1989. Arquitecto Barragán is the executive president of the Agency for Urban Development and Planning of the government of the state of Nuevo León and has been the Secretary of Urban Development and Ecology of San Pedro Garza, Nuevo León. Finally, our last panelist will be Mr. Fernando Ferreira, Senior Vice President of Source Global. Fernando has been an active global energy and infrastructure, has been active in the global energy and infrastructure market as an investor and developer since 2006. Before his current role, he was Senior Vice President for Origination on a global basis at Emergy, a Norwegian renewable energy company. Fernando is an adjunct professor with Northwestern with a Master's of Science in Energy and Sustainability. He has work experience in more than 20 countries in Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, Africa, and the Americas. He received his bachelor's degree from University del Salvador in Argentina, his master's from Johns Hopkins University, and obtained a 2017 executive education certificate on energy policy and climate change at Harvard University. We'll hear from Fernando a little bit more about what Source Global is doing to meet the needs of remote and arid areas. So first, I'll ask Mr. Martinez, please. We'll do the video at the end. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Do you want to do it at the end or do you want me to do it now?
Yeah, no, please, go ahead.
Okay, very good. Well, good morning, and thank you very much to the NetBank for the invitation to participate in this very important gathering here, and also to share some of our situations in California, particularly with Imperial County and the Imperial Irrigation District, which basically borders the U.S. Mexico border. And also the challenges that we face are the same ones that are faced basically with our neighbors across the border in Mexicali and a whole irrigation area that encompasses Southern California, also Arizona and Mexicali and Baja. A little bit of background about, if I can go to the next slide, a little bit about IID. Imperial Irrigation District is located in the southern part of Southern California, east of San Diego and west of Yuma, Arizona. Like I mentioned before, we border with the U.S. border there with Mexico, and to the west we also have the Salton Sea. The Salton Sea has been a long standing sea. This before the dams were built on the Colorado River. Water overflowed into this Salton Sea, creating one of the largest seas in California. And since the dams were built, in essence, the water that would normally flow to the sea has been basically diverted and no longer flows to that area. Over time, the sea has become a really environmental problem for the Southern California area and more so for the residents in the Imperial County community. And this is one of the challenges that we have in not only with the drought water situation, but in general, the fact that the sea is dying is creating quite a bit of concern and it being accelerated by the drought now that we're encountering in the last 23 years. The other part that we serve is the electric side. We are basically we provide energy for Imperial County and then also parts of Riverside County, mostly in the Coachella Valley area. So as a sole provider of energy there, we also have the environmental challenges to meet all the criteria that California is implementing and providing additional changes to our infrastructure and also service reliability. Lastly, we also are connected to Mexico. We send every summer roughly 27, 28 megawatts of energy we export into Mexico to supplement the energy requirements in Mexicali, where they have a large industrial footprint, and also because of the high temperatures that we encounter both across the border in Southern California as well as Mexicali, the load basically really increases significantly. So we sell energy and transport energy into Mexicali and Baja, and help supplement the needs of energy there as well. Next page, please. So let me talk a little bit about the Colorado River water users and situations. Back in June of this year, the Commission of the Bureau of Reclamation, who is the water master basically for the river, requested the upper and lower basin. These are 7 states that receive water from the Colorado River. Colorado River serves water or provides water for about 40 million citizens in those 7 states. And the Secretary of the Bureau of Reclamation and the Commissioner requested both the upper and lower basin states to come up with a plan to reduce the consumption of water between 2 to 4 million acre feet annually for the next 4 years. If you think about the volume of water we're talking about is very significant, but this particular action was for 2 reasons: to protect the aspect of the health of the river and maintain enough reserves on both reservoirs, Lake Powell and Lake Mead, to ensure that the water would not go to the point where water cannot be delivered to the 7 states. Secondly, there's a power production element to that as well, in that there are large hydro facilities that produce hydropower both to all 7 states at Lake Powell and Lake Mead. And without protecting the elevations of these 2 reservoirs, then the power production will also be eliminated, causing problems on the grid and probably providing challenges in producing and delivering water to customers in all 7 states. IED is one of the largest participants in the Colorado River Basin. This agency was created in 1911 when there were no dams. The river ran free. The district basically, at the time, acquired very senior water rights. And roughly at this point, we have the largest portion of water allocation on the Colorado River for all states and specifically California, where California receives 4.4 million acre feet of water a year. The district has rights to 3.6 million of that water. So as you can tell, just on the sheer number of water that we are diverting from the Colorado River for use in the Imperial County and the district, any cutbacks in water use is significant and troublesome to continue to maintain operations in the river. And also in the industries that we have, as well as our population and the economy of the agriculture we produce. We roughly irrigate 500,000 acre feet. This is the most productive irrigation fields in all of most of the nation of the United States. And from that perspective, a lot of that cultivation basically exported to other parts of the state and also internationally. So the history of this issue continues to be one that for many, many years, that industry has been established, is very robust. But also along the way, we've implemented ways to be more efficient and also be able to basically be more effective in how the fields are irrigated and also how they're basically established in a way to be productive and minimize the water use. There's still more work to be done in that area. However, again, the concern again is that this issue of making changes very rapidly in a situation where the water is scarce and the demand for irrigation products continue to increase becomes a major challenge to balance those two requirements. Furthermore, the reduction of water into Mexico becomes another challenge because under the compacts that have been established in allocation of water, Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada take cuts of water, reduction of water imports or diversions from the river before California does. And that established a very challenging dynamic cooperative effort between the states as to how you allocate water when California basically at this point would not be impacted while the other states will be impacted. So it becomes not only a political issue, but also a very sensitive aspect of balancing the water use and also establishing how the economies will continue to thrive and survive as this change takes place. Next slide, please. So water currently is conserved. This slide basically is just a quick illustration as to the Bureau of Reclamation is establishing limits on the both reservoirs. They've taken a sample of one slide of Lake Powell. This is up in the upper basin, and you can see across cutaway view of the dam and the reservoir, along with the production of hydro units. And this is primarily how water is delivered from the upper basin to the lower basin between the dams. Using the hydro units, water is basically delivered through the generators and then downstream into Lake Powell. And the concern, of course, is that if the elevation gets too far down, that water transfer cannot happen. And then they have to rely on bypass valves that were not designed to deliver water to begin with. That begins to also challenge and put into play the safety of dams and just the infrastructure in general that is can be basically not operated properly over a long period of time. And it also establishes violation of contracts that have been established for many, many years as to what the upper basin will deliver to the lower basin in regards to volumes of water to maintain, again, the agriculture and deliveries to cities, counties, and industry. So from that perspective, this becomes another major objective as to how to manage that water, how to maintain power systems stable and reliable, and then again, thinking ahead in regards to more efficient use of water in general going forward. Next page, please. This just a quick overview more of how our system is delivered. I mentioned before that the diversion of water becomes directly from the river to our system, and then the drains of the farms basically drain into the Salton Sea. Now, the Salton Sea, as I mentioned before, is a major objective of California to restore, not necessarily restore, but remediate, to address the issues of fish life, wildlife, and also just in general the quality of air emissions. What's happened over time is that the sea has been drying up, and as the sea recedes, it relieves a playa that keeps increasing in size. And with the high winds that come across from the west to the east, that airborne particulates get up in the air and causes a lot of health problems for residents. So the high incidence of asthma and other respiratory diseases are very high in the area. And again, it becomes an issue that has to be addressed and has been addressed over the last several years, but continues to be a challenge for us, and more so now that the drought has continued and is exacerbating. One other point that I also wanted to make here is that the district has begun transferring water from agriculture to urban communities. There was a compact made back in 2007 that water that would typically be used for irrigation would be transferred directly to San Diego and the Coachella Valley as well. So about half a million acre feet of water a year is actually delivered that would have come to our area is delivered directly to San Diego to supplement their water requirements. And San Diego's in the same situation because they're at the end of the pipeline, and any drought conditions that occurs on delivery of water becomes a challenge. We've also implemented a distribution system for our farmers to limit water use and establish make sure they don't overuse water and overproduce crops in a way that basically challenges the elevations of the water in the Colorado River. And then lastly, just a point of fact that affects environmentally the farming activities, not only in the Coachella Valley and also in Imperial and the Mexicali Valley, is the salt content. Every acre foot of water that we divert from the river has about a ton of salt. So over time, if you think about the water itself as it flows to the farms and then drains to the drains for evacuation of the farms, salt is being deposited. So consequently, over time, you have to flush that salt out from the soil. Otherwise, the soil conditions become very challenging. And again, you need water for that to happen. So we have these compounding problems that operation we got to deal with, but at the same time, we got to be careful of the water use that can be allocated and will be allocated from the river. Our last challenge, of course, is that we do not want to get to what we call dead pool. That is the point where basically there's not enough water in the reservoirs like Monterey had, where literally there may be water behind the dam, but you cannot extract it from the dam. So this is the situation we're also trying to manage, because for our system, that's the only source of water. We don't have wells. We don't have groundwater to tap from. So the whole economy, our residents, our cities are all dependent on this water that comes from the Colorado River. So for us, it's a major challenge to be not only creative but participating in how do we maintain this element, very precious water, because water is life for our system. Next page, please. Now, looking forward, we have another challenge and an opportunity. And this is where this whole nexus between water and energy comes together. The Imperial County area has been called the Saudi Arabia lithium. It's the objectives of new electrification of transportation. You've heard speakers before in this forum here talk about now the movement to electrify transportation is becoming a major target. Lithium has become a major element, fundamental element to build batteries and establish moving the transportation sector to electrification, aside from the whole concept of adding more capacity in the system to accommodate new charging of electric vehicles. However, the lithium is plentiful in the Imperial County area. We have plants by several companies to develop and extract the lithium. And it's not the traditional lithium extraction or lithium production that's done in other countries where they're actually a mining operation. In this case, it's basically utilizing energy that's tapped from the ground, expanded through generators for geothermal energy, and then that lithium is basically extracted from the brine that comes from the ground before it goes back in and recycles. And so, in essence, the process is very, very ecologically friendly. There's no waste. Very little waste production is provided. But the challenge is it needs water for that type of technology to be produced. So now we're trying to balance the aspect of the water use, favoring agriculture versus industrial. And again, with the challenge that lithium has become, not only lithium, but other elements that are sitting in the brine become great opportunities for that purpose to move ahead on the aspect of new elements to advance the ecology and the economy of California and deal with the environmental issues that are being produced by transportation. And then the other part is developing geothermal. There's approximately 2,000 megawatts of known proven capacity for new geothermal plants to be built. And this will also address the issue of the fluctuation of energy that solar energy does not have, or that also wind energy does not provide. So this becomes a very easy, or say elegant replacement to some of the fossil plants that are being produced and the nuclear plants are being retired. So this also becomes another element of stabilizing the grid and maintaining that ability to continue to maintain more ecological and friendly energy production as well. So with that, I just want to close by also indicating that since I took this job over 3.5 years ago, we knew changes were coming, but I cannot believe the acceleration of how change has happened. And I think this is something we're going to be facing, all of us here, as we see things develop much, much faster, a much faster pace. Steps, we got to really kind of think very hard as to how to accelerate our infrastructure and investments and making sure that, in essence, we're thinking for the long term. They talked about this being a 23-year drought in the Colorado River, but the last time it happened was 1,500 years ago, based on historical facts. And it appears that this drought and the changes we see in the environment are here is going to be around for us for quite a while. So this is not a short sprint. It's really a long run that we have to keep in mind as we make decisions and changes in our infrastructure. So with that, thank you again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martinez. I think if we can go and show the video from Pure Water, since we're also talking California. Thank you.
Welcome to the City of San Diego's Pure Water Demonstration Facility. This facility is a key element of the overall Pure Water San Diego program, which will provide 1/3 of the city's drinking water by 2035. The Pure Water Demonstration Facility uses advanced technology to treat recycled water to meet drinking water standards. This facility here, since 2011, has produced over 1 million gallons a day of purified water that's used for monitoring and testing. The results of this testing, combined with input from scientists, health experts, and outside laboratories, has shown that this is a safe, new water supply for the city of San Diego. We're pleased to have you join our engineers, operators, and other staff associated with the Pure Water program on your tour of these facilities today. Phase 1 of the Pure Water program, which includes a full-size treatment plant facility, pipelines, and pump stations, are being designed and construction is beginning now.
The first step of San Diego's water purification process is called ozonation. Ozone gas is a powerful oxidant and is generated here on site by subjecting oxygen molecules to a high electrical voltage, converting O2 to O3. That's done by specialized equipment that's inside of the white metal container back there. That gas is then infused in the water, and then it carries through a series of blue pipes called the ozone contactors. The contactors then provide time in which ozone can then react with constituents in the water. Ozone is very reactive, and it'll break down pathogens that can cause us harm by destroying their outer cell walls. It can also break down other smaller molecules to more basic forms. It takes about 8 minutes for the water to pass through this process. The second step is the biological activated carbon filters. By the time the water reaches the filters here, all the ozone in it will have either been consumed or it'll break down to O2, its more stable form. Inside of the filters is a media just teeming with beneficial bacteria. These bacteria consumes the organics that were broken down by the ozone process. We get about 30 to 50% removal of organic matter from this process. The beneficial bacteria are then removed in the next step along with any other thing that gets through the filter.
And here we are at the third barrier of the water purification process. It's called the membrane filtration. At this stage, recycled water is pushed by high pressure pumps through filtration membranes that's made up of thousands of hollow fibers. These fibers have very fine pores that filter out particles, bacteria, and protozoa in the water. 99.9% of the particles cannot pass through this process. We're testing two types of membranes. On the left is the ultrafiltration. On the right is the microfiltration. The difference between these two types of membranes is that ultrafiltration takes out additional organic matter, but it also operates at high pressure and requires more energy to do so. 1 million gallons per day of water passes through these two equipments. 500,000 goes to the ultrafiltration and the other half goes to the microfiltrations. All membranes are tested and monitored daily to confirm the integrity of the membrane filters. It only takes 1 minute for water to pass through these membranes. To prevent particle buildup on the membrane fibers, a process called backwashing occurs every 30 minutes. Backwashing reverses the flows of water and uses air scouring to shake off any particle buildup on the membrane fibers. As the water gets processed through the membrane filtrations, it comes together here at this 15,000 gallon storage tank where it is ready to get processed and moved on to the next barrier that's called the reverse osmosis.
Okay, now for reverse osmosis. So reverse osmosis is an extremely powerful treatment technology. It's able to remove 99.9% of what remains in the water after it's already gone through the 3 steps you've already seen. And we are actually testing 2 types, 2 configurations, and 2 manufacturers. The reason we did this is we wanted to be able to compare the performance of the membranes, how much removal we're able to get, and then also be able to measure the energy consumption, since this is a pretty energy-intensive treatment step. So similar to the membrane filters and the other processes you've already seen, we're constantly monitoring the water as it enters the RO membranes and exits. We want to make sure that we're getting the removal of the dissolved salts and the dissolved organic compounds that we expect. And so the way we do that, our operators pull samples from quarts like these throughout the day. Each one of these is plumbed to an individual canister of membranes. So we take the water and we test it for temperature, electric conductivity, and other parameters just to make sure that the membranes are working properly. So if you follow me around the corner, we'll show you what they look like. So the membranes are actually these plastic sheets, and they're rolled in consecutive layers similar to a roll of paper towels. So you have the membrane, and in between you have this netting. It acts as a spacer. And so how it works is it's tightly wound. The water is forced under pressure on the outside of the canister, and it makes its way through each layer of the membrane. And what happens is those dissolved salts and organic compounds that we want to remove from the water, they get trapped in between the sheets, and they're forced out the ends of the canister. They're not allowed to continue on in the process, and so all that makes it through is the filtered water that gets to the center of the membrane, and this is what goes on to the next step in the process. And there you have it. That's reverse osmosis.
We're now at the fifth and final barrier of the Pure Water Demonstration Facility, advanced oxidation with ultraviolet light. When the water leaves the reverse osmosis unit, a powerful disinfectant is injected into it. This unit right here produces ultraviolet light, which is similar to extremely concentrated sunlight. There's actually 72 bulbs just like this wound up inside of the unit. When that ultraviolet light hits that disinfectant, powerful reactant molecules are formed, which actually destroy any matter that happens to be left in the water at that point. It's so powerful and so fast that in just 1 second, 99.9999% of all protozoa, bacteria, and viruses are all destroyed. This process also helps to ensure that no new matter is formed in the water going forward. And after this step is finished, we have purified water.
Now that the water has gone through the 5 treatment steps that you've seen, the water is pure and distilled water quality. The water produced at this 1 million gallon per day demonstration facility is tested to ensure that it meets all drinking water standards. As you can see, the water is pure, just as pure as the water that comes from the tap in your home. In fact, it's so pure that we'll have to add minerals back into the water before we pipe it to Miramar Reservoir. The water produced here at the demonstration facility is being returned to the recycled water system for irrigation and industrial uses. Phase 1 of the Pure Water program will construct a 30 million gallon per day full-scale facility that's 30 times larger that will use the same technology that you saw here in the demonstration facility. I hope you enjoyed this look at the City of San Diego's Pure Water Demonstration Facility. We invite you to visit purewatersd.org to get more information about this important project for San Diego's future.
What a great video for the diversified water portfolio, including reclamation and filtration of the water. So thank you very much for the City of San Diego for sending that. I'll ask now Architect of Barragán, your comment.
Muy buenas tardes. Espero que no haya inconveniente en que hagamos esta presentación en español. Primero que nada, muchas gracias a NatBank por esta invitación y la oportunidad de compartir con ustedes las experiencias que hemos estado viviendo en la ciudad de Monterrey. Primero que nada, comentarles que Agua y Drenaje de Monterrey es una empresa pública estatal. Es la única empresa en México que cubre todo un estado. Y esto nos da ciertas ventajas. Primero que nada, en nuestra capacidad de recursos humanos, tenemos alrededor de 5,700 empleados en Agua y Drenaje de Monterrey. Somos la empresa número 1 en facturación en todo México y la número 2 en número de usuarios. Tenemos 1,800,000 cuentas. Somos una empresa que produce remanentes de operación. Tenemos previsto para este año un remanente de operación equivalente al 20% de nuestra facturación, que es del orden de $500 millones al año. Y para los próximos años, gracias a una serie de mejoras operativas y en nuestro consumo energético, debemos de incrementar este remanente de operación del orden del 30, quizás hasta un 35%. Es decir, somos una empresa con excelentes calificaciones crediticias. Somos una empresa que en algunas calificadoras estamos en AAA y con mucha voluntad para mejorar. Sin embargo, hemos tenido este año una crisis muy importante que se ha hecho incluso de conocimiento internacional, pero que está en proceso de ser solucionada y eso es lo que les queremos compartir. Primero que nada, la siguiente, por favor. Rápidamente mostrarles, este es el estado de Nuevo León y nosotros nos surtimos fundamentalmente de dos tipos de fuentes de agua. Las fuentes superficiales son en este momento 3 presas. La presa El Cuchillo, no tengo un apuntador para señalarla, pero se encuentra en la cuenca de color naranja, que es la cuenca del río San Juan. Es una presa grande que tiene capacidad de 1.200.000 metros cúbicos. Actualmente se encuentra el 40% y en este momento es nuestra principal fuente de abastecimiento de agua, la presa El Cuchillo. Tenemos otras 2 presas, una pequeña que se llama la presa de la Boca. Es una presa de solamente 40 millones de metros cúbicos de capacidad. Se encuentra actualmente a un 8.6% y nos está proveyendo de aproximadamente 800 litros por segundo en este momento. Y el problema más crítico lo tenemos en la zona de color rosa, donde tenemos la presa Cerro Prieto. La presa Cerro Prieto es una presa mediana de 300 millones de metros cúbicos de capacidad y actualmente está abajo del 1%. Y la estuvimos explotando hasta ese nivel utilizando todo tipo de tecnologías, entre ellas sistemas con balsas flotantes para poder seguir extrayendo agua hasta que ya no hubo capacidad. Pero todo esto tiene una historia que es lo que les queremos compartir, una historia que tiene 2 elementos, un elemento climático, que es el problema que ya todos conocemos de la sequía regional, y un elemento también de falta de planificación. Y realmente en lo que más podemos nosotros incidir es en la planificación y en las inversiones necesarias para evitar que esto vuelva a suceder. De hecho, tenemos un plan para el 2050, el cual estamos ya en etapa de implementación. Afortunadamente, como les decía, somos una empresa que genera remanentes de operación que nos permiten financiar todas estas inversiones. No es el caso, desgraciadamente, en todo México. La siguiente, por favor. Aquí podemos ver la historia de lo que ha sucedido con estas fuentes de agua. Primero señalar que el agua superficial, el agua que obtenemos de nuestras presas, representa en un año normal el 60% de nuestro consumo. Aproximadamente consumimos en promedio 16 metros cúbicos por segundo y estas presas nos representan el 60% de esto. La presa Cerro Prieto comenzó a entrar en un proceso de debilitamiento desde el año 2015, como lo podemos ver en la gráfica de la izquierda, con altos y bajos provocados por los periodos de lluvia, pero de una manera muy clara, a partir del año 2020 estaba en crisis. Y ahí es donde entra el proceso de falta de planificación. En el año 2020 se tuvieron que haber tomado las medidas adecuadas para que Agua y Drenaje tuviera una reserva. Una empresa de agua seria debe de trabajar con una reserva de por lo menos 20%, óptimamente un 30 o 35% de reserva, sobre todo ante estas situaciones problemáticas asociadas al cambio climático. La presa de la Boca, que como les digo es una presa pequeña, tiene altos y bajos más marcados, pero esto tiene que ver con el hecho de que cuando la presa de la Boca disminuye mucho su nivel, Cerro Prieto le trasvasa agua. Entonces la presa de la Boca tendría el mismo comportamiento. Y lo que vemos al final del gráfico a la derecha es que en el último año se fue muy abajo porque ya no hubo capacidad de trasvase de Cerro Prieto a la Boca. Y la presa de la Boca siempre se trata de mantener un cierto nivel porque además de el uso que tiene para surtir de agua a la ciudad, también tiene mucho uso turístico, se encuentra en la periferia de la ciudad de Monterrey y hay muchísimos comercios, restaurantes y todo esto que viven de la existencia de agua en esta presa, los deportes acuáticos y la recreación. De manera que, como vemos, si bien hay un problema climático, también hay un problema de planeación. En términos climáticos, hemos analizado las cifras que tenemos históricas y vemos dos fenómenos. Primero, que más o menos cada 7 años en promedio tenemos un año seco. Pero más o menos en promedio cada 35 años tenemos la conjunción de más de un año seco, llegando incluso hasta 3 años secos, que es la situación que estamos viviendo actualmente, 2020, 2021 y 2022. Esto ya lo tuvimos en los años 80, del 84 al 87, y también lo tuvimos en los años 50, del 51 al 54, 3 años secos. Evidentemente, la hipótesis es si esto se va a agravar por el tema del cambio climático. No tenemos información científica confirmada. Lo que sí sabemos son dos cosas. Primero, que la temperatura está aumentando. Eso sí tenemos datos duros que nos dicen que la temperatura está aumentando, por lo tanto, la evaporación del agua en las presas. Y segundo, que la población está aumentando. En los años 50, Monterrey tenía escasos 200,000 habitantes. En los años 80 tenía 2 millones de habitantes. Ahora tenemos más de 5 millones de habitantes. Somos la segunda ciudad más grande de México y además somos la ciudad más dinámica del país, particularmente en este momento con el fenómeno del nearshoring. La ciudad está creciendo con la instalación de una empresa importante por semana. No sé si el gobernador se los comentó ayer, pero es un reto fuerte. Pero estamos preparados para enfrentarlo y eso es lo que les quiero transmitir. Sí estamos en una crisis. Hoy día ya pasamos lo más difícil de la crisis. Hoy día estamos aproximadamente a un 18% de déficit, lo cual nos permite ya reducir mucho el impacto que hemos tenido sobre la población. Llegamos a estar el día 19 de junio, un día que no me quiero acordar mucho, llegamos a estar a un 65% de déficit, porque tuvimos un problema en el acueducto del Cuchillo que estamos actualmente arreglando. Ya está arreglado, de hecho, pero ya ahorita estamos tranquilos, tenemos lluvias, debemos de estabilizar la situación, pero no podemos permitir que esto vuelva a suceder en Monterrey. Somos uno de los grandes motores de la economía de México. No es un problema nada más local, es un problema nacional y yo diría incluso, dada la relación que tenemos con los Estados Unidos, es un problema internacional, regional, particularmente con Texas, pero toda la cadena de suministros en los Estados Unidos está muy ligada a la actividad industrial de Monterrey. La siguiente, por favor. Y esto es la situación que vemos de lo que nos ha venido sucediendo este año. Cuando inició esta administración del gobernador Samuel García en octubre y que nosotros, en nuestro equipo, tomó el control de la empresa, estábamos en un verdadero desastre, con una sobreexplotación de nuestras fuentes y con un problema financiero importante, con muy poco flujo de caja. Entonces, nos abocamos a dos cosas. Aquí me acompaña, de hecho, el director de finanzas, quien ha hecho un trabajo excelente, Humberto Panti. Lo primero que hicimos fue estabilizar nuestras finanzas y segundo, proponer a nuestro consejo de administración las medidas suficientes para que la empresa pudiera enfrentar los retos financieros que nos implicaba este programa que ahora les voy a presentar. Y eso ya está logrado. Tenemos una nueva tarifa, tenemos los elementos adecuados para poder enfrentar con recursos esta problemática. Pero también tuvimos que actuar sobre el suministro de manera inmediata. Medidas que se debieron de haber tomado en el año 2020, las tomamos nosotros de inmediato. Y básicamente fue la perforación de una manera emergente de pozos someros para mitigar la pérdida de agua, el reducir el abastecimiento de las presas Si seguíamos explotando nuestras presas, nos iba a durar el agua 2 meses, particularmente en Cerro Prieto. Logramos prolongar la vida de Cerro Prieto 9 meses hasta que ya no hubo más, hace aproximadamente un mes. Pero ya para entonces el programa de perforación de pozos someros y profundos ya estaba encaminado. Y por eso hoy día les puedo decir que estamos en el proceso de salir de la crisis. Adicionalmente, negociamos con la industria. Nosotros somos distribuidores de agua, pero la industria nos ha estado apoyando con cierta capacidad para poder incrementar la distribución a la población, y negociamos con el sector agrícola, incorporando mejoras tecnológicas para que ellos nos proporcionen algún volumen. De esta manera, hoy día les podemos decir que si bien esta ha sido la situación donde la línea roja es la demanda y la línea azul es la oferta, nos encontramos ya en proceso de reinvertir esta situación y salir, como les digo, a un punto de equilibrio para el mes de septiembre. La siguiente, por favor. ¿Qué estamos haciendo? ¿Cuáles son nuestros proyectos? ¿Y cuáles son las medidas que se están invirtiendo? Primero que nada, vemos que la oferta actual es de 13 metros cúbicos por segundo. Esto es al día de hoy. Un poquito más, de hecho, ya amanecimos con 13.2. En pozos someros estamos invirtiendo 270 millones de pesos para incrementar el abastecimiento en 1.6 metros cúbicos. Este abastecimiento de 1.6 metros cúbicos es un abastecimiento sustentable. De hecho, en un momento dado pudiéramos sacar 2.8 o hasta 3 metros cúbicos. Pero la idea es que tengamos esa diferencia como una reserva. Y ahorita les platicaré al final. Enseguida, el programa de pozos profundos es un programa más caro. Son pozos que van entre 1,000 y 2,000 metros de profundidad. Afortunadamente, nos encontramos en una cuenca geológica muy rica en agua profunda. De hecho, una de las cosas que hemos estado en diálogo con NatBank es el poder establecer un programa de investigación para conocer más los acuíferos profundos de la región, porque realmente no hay un conocimiento suficiente en todo el mundo, pero particularmente en México, de estas fuentes de agua profunda. Con esto tendríamos 2.6 metros cúbicos por segundo adicionales. Estamos en construcción de la presa Libertad, va a ser la cuarta presa, que nos va a dar 1.6 metros cúbicos por segundo. Esto debe estar terminado para el año diciembre del 2023. Estamos por iniciar la construcción de un segundo acueducto del Cuchillo. Esta es una situación que recién se dio, es una inversión del orden de 10,400 millones de pesos. Una parte la va a cubrir la Federación, la otra parte agua y drenaje, al igual que la presa Libertad, es más o menos 50-50 en promedio, con lo que vamos a tener la capacidad de extraer hasta 5 metros cúbicos por segundo adicionales. Evidentemente, no solo queremos sacar los 5 metros cúbicos, sino queremos poder administrar mejor nuestras presas, tener una verdadera administración de planeación hídrica sustentable y resiliente. Enseguida estamos trabajando sobre pozos, sobre los acuíferos agrícolas. Se está trabajando mucho en un modelo de modulación de presiones. Es decir, tenemos agua en algunas zonas de la ciudad donde la presión es muy alta y se desperdicia mucha agua por la alta presión, y zonas por la geografía donde la presión es baja. Entonces estamos nivelando todas las presiones con la finalidad de poder hacer un uso eficiente. Es el mismo volumen de agua, pero nos representa una mejor distribución. Y por último, plantas de reuso potable indirecto, con tecnologías similares a las que nos presentó San Diego, con la diferencia de que la norma mexicana no nos permite reinyectar directamente el agua a la red, sino que tenemos que hacer un uso indirecto. De esta forma estaríamos incorporando 14 metros cúbicos por segundo adicionales y llegaríamos a un abastecimiento garantizado, aún en la situación actual, de 27 metros cúbicos por segundo, cuando nuestra demanda actual es de 16. A eso es lo que me refiero, que tendríamos una gran reserva para que tengamos agua, primero de inmediato, pero sobre todo para los próximos años. La siguiente, por favor. Bueno, para los próximos años, incluso analizando proyectos que todavía no los tenemos en la cartera definitivamente, que son el traer agua del río Pánuco. El río Pánuco, tenemos ya una concesión para 15 metros cúbicos por segundo. No lo estamos incorporando en este momento porque implica inversiones sumamente importantes. Y el otro aspecto es el trabajar sobre un proyecto de desalinización, que también lo tenemos como una perspectiva de mediano plazo, pero en nuestra infraestructura hidráulica estamos tomando las medidas adecuadas para que cuando se dé el proyecto de desalinización, se lleve el agua, pudiera ser a partir de Matamoros, pudiera ser a partir de alguna otra zona del Golfo de México, a la presa del Cuchillo, el Cuchillo tenga la capacidad de transportarla a Monterrey. Eso sí lo estamos previendo ya en este momento. De manera que para todas las personas que nos acompañan, para los inversionistas, para la comunidad financiera en general, decirles que estamos preparados en Monterrey para enfrentar el reto de la sustentabilidad en nuestro abastecimiento de agua. Este año nos ha enseñado muchísimo, nos ha permitido revisar nuestra cartera de proyectos. Nosotros trabajamos siempre con 4 elementos de planificación. La planificación hídrica, por supuesto, la planificación financiera, la planificación jurídica y la planificación política. Y les puedo decir que el proyecto que les acabo de mostrar pasa por los 4 filtros, tenemos los recursos para financiarlo y estamos ya trabajando para ponerlo en operación. Y nuevamente agradecerles a todos por esta invitación y su atención. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Fernando.
Do we have the video, if possible?
Humans and water. We go way back. Way, way back. Water's the reason we live here, build here, gather here. Where we find a supply of water, we grow. From sand to silicon, from sea to space. Humans and water go way back because humans need water to go forward. And a supply of clean drinking water is a source of opportunity. That's why we do what we do, making water from sunlight and air, in arid deserts and inner cities, at mines and schools and everywhere in between. Perfect drinking water for every person, every place. Places that it can't be found, places it ought to be, places it's never been before. We don't believe opportunity should be miles away, or less common than Wi-Fi, or trapped in a plastic bottle, or live in a rusty pipe. We believe it should be accessible, renewable, and digital, a source of growth, of hope, health, empowerment, a source for every person, for every place.
Okay. Muchas gracias.
Humans and water. We go way back. Way, way back. Where we find a supply of water, we grow. Humans and water go way back because humans need water to go forward.
and
But
we're
too
delighted
often,
to be here.
water is
So this
miles
map
away,
is a map
less
that,
common than Wi-Fi,
you could find in many,
trapped
many
in a
places.
plastic bottle,
This
on the
is
back
the
of a
last one
truck,
which has been
or
produced.
living in a rusty pipe.
Is a map that was
That's why
published in
communities,
July,
consumers,
this
and
year,
commercial
but
enterprises
came out,
all over the
in
world are
mid-August,
calling out for
public
solutions.
distribution. And
That's
it's a map
why
that is
we do
prepared by
what we do.
agencies, both from the
Make
US
perfect
and
drinking
from
water
places
from the
outside
endlessly
countries.
renewable resources in the sky, and for every person,
And what you
every
can
place.
see is the water
Places it
crisis
ought
that,
to be,
we can
places
find
it's never been before,
in the news.
on remote work
Saline
sites,
water is
in
very,
communities
very
where water and opportunity are
hard.
scarce,
I listed
for
there
hotels and
obviously
destinations,
the
schools,
states on the US and
hospitals,
Mexican side,
and sustainable
where
cities.
we are
For
working in
anyone
this
living a
crisis,
more
which
conscious life,
coincidentally, they are
there's
the ones
nothing
where,
on earth like
NAB
Source.
has their mandate given.
Our
And
world-changing
the first
technology is
300
infinitely
million summer
scalable and
of
built
the
on
next
years
one,
of
please.
scientific and engineering
Um,
innovations.
We
With a
work
talented
in
team,
many
strong
countries
partners,
and regions
and
in the
proven
world.
execution on the
These
ground,
are the
we
four
can quickly grow our presence
problems
and
we
our
usually
impact
find,
around the
in all
world.
these countries.
We're
One
out
is,
front
issues
and
with
moving
access,
fast,
people
but
literally
really,
don't
we're
have
just getting started.
water connection
What
or
solar
pipe.
did for energy,
I think roughly
Source
60% of
is
the people
doing for
on a global
water.
basis,
We're not
they don't
disrupting a
have access to
competitor
safe
or a category.
drinking water.
We're
Second
reinventing the
issue we
world's most
find is
essential
contamination.
resource.
Different
We're
kinds of
creating a
contamination,
source of
arsenic,
hope,
we see a
health,
lot of that
empowerment,
in the US,
and opportunity
lead,
for the people and
and
planet we
different
call home.
bacterias.
For Source,
Reliability
the
is a different
possibilities
problem. This is
are
what
endless.
was discussed by speakers in this paper. You can have a water connection that's close, but doesn't mean that the water quality is actually high. So we see problems in many countries in the world. And finally, problems with cost and waste. And the focus on waste, usually from our perspective, is on plastic bottled water, as we see in many tables here. Because unfortunately, some statistics show that 90% of the plastic bottles are not recycled, although they are recyclable, yeah, but they're not recycled. And it takes like 450 years for them to actually
Think about the
decompose
last
if we don't
drink of
recycle
water
them.
that you
Next
had.
one, please.
How do you know what's in the water that you're drinking?
So the solutions
And the
that
supply
we have
chain
seen
that water
along
came through,
the
whether you
regions,
got it from a government supply
we
or you
think
bought it in
that
a bottle.
they can be,
So you have no transparency to what
summarized
is in
in
that water and what's in
6
that bottle,
different
the
categories.
quality of that water, where
Gathering
it's
water,
been, etc.
this is typically what we see in many
What
countries
we
where
did
we
is
work.
set out to
The
change the
statistics
fundamental human
that we
relationship
have
to
seen
water.
is that
And we're
every
doing
day
that
200
with
million
the product we
hours
call
are
Source,
spent
which is a
going to
hydro
fetch
panel,
water
quite
in
literally
different
a
places.
thing that
So
looks
this
like a
is
solar panel, but
complete
instead of making
waste of
electricity, it
time.
makes fine drinking
It
water
has a
with
huge
sunlight
opportunity cost.
and air
And in
only.
many regions are typically women and girls
It's
the ones
elegantly
going to fetch
designed, and
water.
it's
So
truly
this
a
has a
solar
huge
water source. So
gender
there's no pipe
impact.
connection going
Not
in,
only
no electrical
opportunity
connection
cost
going
for
in.
everybody, but
You put 2 of these
specifically
panels on
has a
your roof,
huge
and you
gender
own the drinking
impact.
water. Your
The next
cooking
one
water
is
to drink for.
tracking water. And we have seen tracking water in areas where there's a crisis or a
They
short-term
produce
solution.
pure water
The challenge we see there is
that is
that
then
has a
mineralized
huge cost,
so that the water
and
that
also it
comes
has
out
a
has a high
very large
pH
carbon
and tastes great.
footprint or impact.
And we know that we're
The next
doing
one
what
is
we
piped.
think we're doing
This is
because
what we
every
call
panel everywhere
Roman
in the
era
world
solutions, and
is
I do
connected
realize that
through a
water
mesh network,
utilities need to
so
pipe
we can
volumes
see
of water. So,
that we're doing what we
but
say we're
this is
doing
what has
in
been
all the
done
places we're in.
traditionally, and
So whether
at
we're
least in
talking
the
about on
US,
the Palm
the
Dubai
number we saw is
or
that
in
pipes need to be
northern
maintained,
Lebanon up against the
and
Syrian border,
the
where
federal
we're
government
supporting
has
an
estimated
orphanage
that
and
$1
schools
trillion
there.
with T as in
Zero
Tom,
Mass and
$1 trillion
Source is
will
fundamentally
need to
changing
be
people's
spent
lives across
in
a
order to
huge
fix
range
pipes
of
that need to
places.
be fixed. I live in Chicago, and we have great water coming from Lake Michigan, but many lead pipes that have problems. The next one is, of course, packaged water. This is what I was referring to before, in terms of bottled water and the impact on the environment. I skipped, pumped water. Sometimes the problem there is that the aquifers are getting depleted, and if you don't renew the aquifers to certain levels, the water, it has problems with different, salinity and different issues that eventually the water is not drinkable anymore, or you have to spend more money to make it drinkable. And last but not least, desalinated solutions. We have seen many of those. When I used to be a banker, I financed a few of those projects myself. And the challenge with desalination is that roughly 1/3 to half of the water that is being taken is sent back as brine to the environment. So it has some environmental impact, and this is something that is a fact regarding that technology. Next one, please. So we believe that in the case of our technology, what we do is we are tapping the air because there's billions of water in the atmosphere at any given time, in order to produce very high quality drinking water. And this is what Source does. We are a technology company focusing only on drinking water. Next one, please. So that is the hydro panel. I will spend very little time just explaining what it is. I'm not an engineer, so please don't ask difficult questions. But conceptually, we absorb the humidity from the air and we transform it into drinking water by adding minerals inside that hydro panel. We work completely off-grid because we have in the middle of the panel a solar photovoltaic cell, as you can see in the middle. So we work with solar energy, so we don't need an electrical connection. We can be deployed anywhere at any time, and we can produce water after setting up the panel, which takes a couple of hours because it's like a Lego, if you want. We can start producing water in hours. Yeah. So this is a solution that doesn't require any previous infrastructure. Next one, please. We are in more than 50 countries, I believe. I think 54. We are in the state of Texas, of course, and we are also in Mexico, and a bunch of projects in North America, Middle East, Australia, and I think in Latin America, we're in 9 countries by now and counting. Thank you. Next one. So this is a photo from Monterrey. I'm sure one of the many photos from last year. Briefly speaking, we are focusing right now on 3 different areas, in this part of North America. One is rural communities that don't have or never had access to drinking water. Second, schools, typically rural schools that don't have access to safe drinking water. And last, we're looking at populations or cities that are experiencing, severe water problems due to the drought and the many issues we have seen. So these are the 3 focus areas where we're working right now in this part of the region. Thank you. Next. So this is an actual project. This is in Texas, and is in the colonias. Colonias are essentially, cities or small towns located in unincorporated areas of the state that lack pretty much most basic services. That includes lighting, that includes electricity sometimes, and that usually includes water. So we have installed, for instance, in La Presa and Santa Teresita, a very interesting project, which is like 20 miles north of Laredo, to give you a sense where they are. And thanks to this project, the 2,000 people that live nearby La Presa and Santa Teresita, they have access to clean drinking water. Next one, please. So these are just case studies of projects we have done. This is in Mexico, in Los Mochis. I found that photo myself. I've never been in Los Mochis, but I love that photo. And this is a project that we did for 3 schools that were lacking drinking water. So we installed that project in 2017. This is in the state of Sinaloa. And also we installed a pilot project at the headquarters of INIFED, which used to be the infrastructure department for the education department in Mexico. The next one, please. I'm at 9 minutes, so I want to be careful here. That is in Belize, in Central America. And that is a school project that was funded by the Inter-American Development Bank, a sister institution, I guess, another development bank. So we're happy that we installed, as you can see there, panels on the roof. And these hydro panels are supplying all of the students and the teachers and administration working in that school. Next one, please. This one is closer to our headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. So this is in the Navajo Nation. And the Navajo Nation is a very large territory. I think it's 27,000 square miles. Roughly 170,000 people form part of the Navajo Nation. And about 40% of them, they don't have access to water. They never did. This is not a problem because of the drought. They never had access to drinking water. So right now we're installing a project in 547 homes, and many of these homes, they are having water for the first time in their lives in many generations. So this is a project that we're building right now in Arizona. Next one. This is close to the headquarters of a source in Phoenix, Arizona. So with this array of hydro panels, we're actually bottling the water in aluminum. We don't do single-use plastic, and you can buy this water at Whole Foods if you care, in the West Coast. But this is just to demonstrate that even in very low humidity areas like Phoenix, Arizona, which sometimes we have 10, 20% humidity in the air, we can produce the water that we need to produce. Next one, please. This is in sunny California. Allensworth is roughly 40 miles north of Bakersfield. And this is a community that had always problems with arsenic content. I think they reach over 60% over the limit that is legally allowed. So we have installed our hydro panel technology in a community center. And thanks to that, people and folks there can go and get water. Next one, please. So that's it. So I am exactly at 10 minutes. So Renata, I try to be. Thank you so much. Thanks.
I'm not sure. Jesse, do we have time for a few questions? 5 minutes. Okay. If you don't mind, I'll ask a few questions to the panel then. Mr. Martinez, I appreciated the discussion you shared on the diverse services that you provide to your constituency. How do you have to prioritize your users and delivery of water to users between agricultural, municipal, and industrial users?
Yes. So the irrigation district was formed basically for irrigation purposes. So the majority of the water has been allocated for irrigation use. 97% of the water that's important into our district goes to irrigation. And within that premise, we also allocate smaller quantities of water for the cities, municipal cities, for municipal use, and also industry. And this is where the challenge comes about, because as the water becomes less and less available, we got to start making hard decisions as to how we accommodate the introduction of new industry and also maintain the aspect of the agriculture community. So it's a tricky negotiation. It's something that our board of directors with staff will sit down with the users of water and start allocating and get into agreements as to how this is going to work. The one advantage we do have is our district controls the water. The farmers do not own the water. They receive the use of the water and they pay for it, but they don't have the water rights that's operated by the district. So it's a balance between political and economic challenges that we're going to run into. But at the end of the day, agriculture is going to be primarily will continue, and then the smaller volumes of water that we need for industry and cities will be incorporated within that volume of water that we get.
And I know you mentioned also conservation being an important part of the mix of strategies. How do you influence the private investments that need to occur with the agricultural users?
So we created a program in 2007 to we call the on-farm efficiency program. And what we do is we incentivize the farmers to install equipment, pump X systems, drip irrigation, sprinklers, line leveling, other ways basically to improve and diminish the water consumption on a farm unit while still maintaining the production value of the crop. So that way, basically, we optimize the water utilization. So water that they save under the program, we have different prices that we provide to them. And right now it's running around $280 per acre foot of water. A farmer, it's a voluntary program, but in essence, that's a way to provide the incentives for them to participate and install the equipment that is required to do so. But we see this becoming, it's got to go on steroids, frankly. as we see this drought continuing. And we understand, and that's part of the discussion we're having now as to how we're going to basically increase that efficiency and still maintain the crop production. One of the last things that our board of directors does not want to see is to fallow land. That is not plant crops anymore. That becomes a challenge also because it affects our community, the service providers of the irrigators, people that actually cultivate the farms, and then ultimately the industry, the hotels, restaurants, et cetera, that rely on that workforce would be eliminated. So it's again, we're trying to figure out a way to be more efficient in water use rather than just not producing crops.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One of the statistics I heard you mention at the beginning, Juan Ignacio, was about the efficiencies you have in your system. Yet there's still a water crisis and a challenge in Monterrey. How have you worked with your public to help them understand the challenge and also to be patient with the investments that need to occur there?
Sí, pues por una parte el proceso de generar mayor eficiencia no está concluido. Actualmente estamos al 55%, estamos modulando todo nuestro sistema de manera automática. Una vez que esté esto concluido, podremos decirlo. Pero en lo que se refiere al público, a los usuarios, hemos trabajado sobre 3 ejes. Uno fue primero establecer un sistema tarifario donde las personas que ahorren agua iban a tener una tarifa más baja. Y un porcentaje de la población sí lo hizo. No la totalidad, sorprendentemente hubo un porcentaje del orden del 20% de nuestros usuarios que incrementaron su consumo de agua. No tenemos explicación, pero pues así es la estadística. El segundo eje fue que los usuarios que tuvieran un consumo, usuarios domésticos, mayor a 70 metros cúbicos al mes y no hicieran un esfuerzo por reducir su consumo, se les ponía un reductor de presión. Una medida un poco más difícil, pero nos ha dado algo de resultado. Y el tercer elemento que fue muy útil fue la prohibición del riego del pasto. No, por supuesto, seguir regando los árboles y los arbustos, pero el pasto decorativo con agua potable en una situación como la que vivimos, pues es realmente algo que no se puede permitir. Se establecieron normas al respecto. Todavía tenemos algunas viviendas que lo siguen haciendo, pero ya es muy bajo. Y evidentemente campañas de comunicación. Yo les puedo decir que aproximadamente un 50% de nuestros usuarios redujeron su consumo, un 30% se mantuvieron igual y un 20% lo incrementaron, pero el resultado global fue favorable para nosotros y sí hemos encontrado una respuesta. Lo que todavía no entendemos es por qué algunas personas incrementaron su consumo. Y tuvimos una conferencia con las autoridades de Sao Paulo, Brasil, que tuvieron una experiencia similar hace 6 años. Y curiosamente, le sucedió lo mismo. Un porcentaje de la población aumentó su consumo. Y eso es algo que tendríamos que ver con sociólogos y psicosociólogos para ver por qué la gente toma ese tipo de actitudes tan poco solidarias y tan poco racionales. Pero, en fin, esa fue esa es la respuesta.
Thank you. And how do you see if there's an evolution in Mexico to be able to move toward the reclamation types of projects that they're doing in California? Do you see there's going to be an evolution?
Hay varias ciudades que estamos trabajando en ese sentido. Está la Ciudad de México, está Guadalajara, León, Guanajuato, Monterrey, creo que Tijuana también y Pachuca. Evidentemente, tenemos que enfrentar un reto normativo debido a que tenemos que hacer un reuso potable indirecto para poder repotabilizar. Y el problema es cómo hacerlo indirecto sin que el agua se convierta nuevamente en propiedad de la nación. Mientras el agua está en la red, pertenece al distribuidor. Al momento que toca un cuerpo de agua federal, esa agua pertenece a la nación y pertenece a todos los usuarios. Entonces, ahí hay un problema normativo que estamos enfrentando. Nosotros ya lo tenemos solucionado porque vamos a enviar el agua a un cuerpo de agua donde somos el único usuario. Entonces, ahí no va a haber problema. León, Guanajuato va a ser algo similar. Ciudad de México está teniendo muchos problemas. Ahora, el tema es que este tipo de proyectos son proyectos costosos. Y entonces no solamente es el reto normativo, hay un reto financiero que no todos los organismos pueden enfrentar un proyecto de este costo, ¿no? Ese sería, pero sí hay 5 o 6 ciudades que estamos trabajando en esto.
It's really a different perspective needing to think about ownership of the resource. So thank you. That's really interesting. Fernando, just one last question for you. I think it's fantastic to see this innovation coming from private sector and offering access to remote areas for water. How do you typically structure these types of services? Are you working with the community to have an owner overall? You work with individual residents? How do you usually structure your deployment of this type of technology?
Thank you, Renata. So we do essentially two different things. One, you can literally buy the hydro panels like you buy a fridge or you buy a TV or whatever. And if you buy the hydro panel, you own all the water that the panel will produce over the next 20 years, which is the useful life. So that's one way you can buy it. Here in the U.S., we have residential programs in many states. You can buy them literally on the internet in our website. Two, we do long-term agreements where we are not necessarily selling the hydro panel, but we are selling the water. Because at the end of the day, what people need or want is not the hydro panel, is the water. I am from the countryside. I always use the example that you don't want necessarily the cow, you want the milk. So you don't want to buy necessarily the cow, you just want the milk. So, conceptually, we sign long-term water purchase agreements, which are conceptually very similar to distributed energy PPAs, so power purchasing agreements. I'm sure many lenders and bankers in the room, they know what a PPA is. So essentially what that means is that over the term of the water purchase agreement, we produce the water, we still own the equipment, but we sell the water to the customer. And that could be a city, that could be a town, that could be a company, a mining company, or whoever needs the water. So those are the two ways where we supply or we provide our technology. But at the end of the day, what people want is the water. And one final thought, we believe that as interesting as this technology can be, we're just part of a much bigger solution. We cannot and we will never be the only solution. So that's why we try to work with utilities and with governments to be part of the solution. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all of our panelists. Thanks.